Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal in a statistical and analytical way, break them down with the help of some experts and get their thoughts and your comments in the chat box as well towards the end of the show. Without further ado, let's get on with talking about Tiago Tomás. Now, to kick off the show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Jose Miguel, who's a friend of mine in Sporting in Lisbon and is a big Sporting Lisbon fan himself. And he's going to give us the inside info on a really exciting forward that has been linked to Arsenal with a £20 million supposed bid already being agreed, supposedly, across some outlets. Feel free to check out the reliability of those sources. But some of them are claiming that the deal is already in place and that Arsenal have got kind of stormed ahead of some rivals to secure this deal. That's up in the air. But what isn't up in the air is the information that we're going to get on Tiago Tomás, and I look forward to hearing Jose's comments about it. So without further ado, let's kick off with that.
Hi guys, nice to talk to you again. So I'm here to talk to you about Tiago Tomás this time. He's been fantastic this season for Sporting Lisbon. Sporting is currently in the first place in the Portuguese league, with an 8-point difference for Oporto, who is current champions in Portugal. And Tiago Tomás has been one of the most important players for Sporting this season. He is still 18, so he, for all effects, he is still eligible to play for the under-19 teams, which is surprising that an 18-year-old born in 2002 can be so important in a team who is preparing to be champions if everything works out in Portugal. Nevertheless, that's not so surprising when you watch him play. He is absolutely astounding with his intensity in the game. He has a fantastic pace. He's so fast. He may not have that goal-scoring instinct which you require from a forward. Yet he's not a striker per se. He's not a goal scorer like you would when you think of Agüero or when you think of Aubameyang. He's not that kind of goal scorer. He doesn't have that goal scoring instinct which several strikers, which top class strikers have or should have. But Tiago Tomás is not a striker per se. He has been used most of the times as a right forward or as a right wing even. So Sporting plays in a 3-4-3 system. Like I've watched Arsenal play many times, even though lately that system has changed. But like Chelsea plays right now, Chelsea replicates, or I should say, the Chelsea system is much like the Sporting system. I wouldn't say that Chelsea replicates Sporting, of course. But Tiago Tomás is seldom used as the striker up front. He is most of the times used as the right forward, like for example in Chelsea Hudson-Odoi, for example, or even as a right wing, like Azpilicueta, for example. So you can tell that for a forward, because since he was little, since he was in Sporting's youth teams, he has always been a forward. He's incredibly versatile, and that is due to his tactical knowledge, of course, to his technical capacity as well. And to his commitment to the team, either offensive commitment, defensive commitment, and also to his pace and his intensity in the game, which is fantastic. And I'm sure Arsenal fans would love to watch Tiago Tomás play. Nevertheless, I do think that Tiago Tomás may not yet be ready for a move to the Premier League, which I know it's a very demanding and intense league with the best teams all over the world. So I do think it's a bit early for Tiago Tomás to move to such a league, even though I think he may have a place in Arsenal. But then again, I'm not sure if this Arsenal is appropriate for Tiago Tomás, in a sense that the tactical system has changed, and I don't see Tiago Tomás playing either as a striker, like Lacazette has been playing, for example, or a pure right winger. You know, Tiago Tomás is more of a hybrid winger and forward, which I think in the 3-4-3 system fits perfectly.
So that's Jose's comments about Tiago Tomás. He goes into a little bit more about the statistics, but of course we're going to cover those in just a second and look at some of the graphics as well. But thank you, a massive thank you to Jose. You can find his links in the tweets, which I put out at the Gooner Talk TV, of course. So thank you ever so much for that. Let's have a look at some of those graphics because there's things that we need to talk about regarding the forward, because if you're thinking about this guy being an out-and-out striker, as Jose said, it's not that cut and dry, it's fair to say. So let me just throw up on the screen for you some of the graphics that we're going to look at. So we'll start off by looking at the heat map, which you can see on your screen now. Now, if you thought he is an out-and-out striker, he isn't. And this heat map certainly shows that. He is used as that right-hand side guy so far quite a lot this season. He has played as a central striker at times for Sporting and has been used there and can certainly play there. And from his positioning and from some of the goals you're going to see in a second, he certainly can play that striking role, but he's a versatile player. He can play on the right-hand side, play in the centre of the park. When he gets into the box and likes to take those shots, where they typically come from, he is that kind of, not necessarily a poacher, but someone that loves to get into the box to take opportunities for his team. And typically they are skewed more towards the right-hand side of the box, being that right-hand-sided player. Let's have a look at some of the examples then of goals that he's scored so far this season. Played in behind by Luciano Vieto and gets on the end of this and chips this over the keeper into the back of the net for this opportunity. Good movement, good timing of run, and good finish as well in this example. In this one, another different kind of finish. It's played into the box by Bruno Tabata. He takes it actually on his right foot to play it away from the defender, swivels, and then smashes with his left foot into the bottom left-hand side of the goal. So using both the right and left foot effectively in the games to score his goals. This time, ball played over the top long. Tiago Tomás using his pace to get in behind. And when he does beat the back line, uses a calm finesse shot into the top left-hand corner, way easily past the Paços Ferreira keeper. Really fantastic finish this time around. In this opportunity, quite similar to the first one we looked at, spotting the run and the pass that is going to be made, curving that run into the box before this time dinking it to the left of the keeper, calmly slotting it home along the ground and driven into the bottom left-hand corner. This time, though, he is not only adept with his feet, he can use his head to finish. Cross goes into the box, and using the movement of the keeper across the box, he hits it back across where it came from into the opposite corner to score a simple header. So that's kind of the way in which he scores goals, but he can also create goals being on that right-hand side, playing the ball into the box here for Jovan Cabral, who gets a very, very easy tap in to finish off the cross made by Tiago Tomás. And then the ball played in behind here. This is a pass that I love from the right-hand sided players who are right-footed to make, is to cut inside and then with the outside of the right foot, curl a ball in between the passing lanes for the forward to move on to. And Nuno Santos, in this instance, can't quite get the right touch on the pass to take it around the keeper. But these kind of incidents here are showing you what he's about, what he can do. He's an impressive player. He's someone that I certainly feel would add something to Arsenal's team as kind of a future product, and someone that could certainly add different kinds of elements of not only physicality and pace and speed, but technical skill and potential. And then you have to think about the players that are around him. You have to think about the players that are already at Arsenal. I was about to say his name again, but you got the likes of Folarin and Balogun, whose contract we still are very kind of unsure about at the moment. We're unsure whether his future lies at Arsenal. He's not signed a contract. He seems no closer to signing a contract, despite Mikel Arteta's confidence in seeing him possibly take that opportunity. I don't see it happening personally. I hope I'm wrong, but I personally do see Balogun moving on from Arsenal before the season's conclusion. For that, obviously, that deal to be signed. You've got Eddie Nketiah, who's got a year left on his deal after this season. The same situation as Alexandre Lacazette. Arsenal need to be investing in a forward. We'll get to some of the ideas around whether or not we should be looking to invest in a player of this ilk, of this age and profile in a second. Let's now have a look at some of the statistics through the help of Wyscout, of course. Jumping onto Wyscout, looking at some of his attacking stats. 6 goals so far this season is impressive for an 18-year-old playing at Sporting in all competitions, that is. So I believe if we scroll down again, playing for in the friendlies, in the World Club friendlies. So you wouldn't really count those. So I suppose we can say 5 goals this season and a single 1 assist. When he's taking those shots, as we talked about earlier, 52% of his shots are hitting the target, which is a good return. A good return for a player so young and composed, I suppose, in those areas. And 1.5 shots are averagely being taken. When he does dribble, which is only 2.29 times per game, 55.3% success rate on those dribbles, winning 36.9% of his offensive duels, and touching the ball just over 3 times per game in the penalty area. If we look at some of his passing for a right-hand side of his player, 74 passing accuracy for a forward is not too... it's not the best, 74% passing accuracy. But when you look at the passing ratio, he is passing the ball backwards more than he is forwards. And that's usually because he's getting to that kind of byline and then cutting it back. So the backward passes, which you would imagine to be on the pitch, not in the sense of the same way we see Willian, but more so because he's driving to the byline and then cutting it back where he can. Passing to the penalty area, 1.44 per game, and passing to the final third, 1.38. We're not really seeing too much in terms of like heavy, really impressive statistics from an 18-year-old that's just broken into the Sporting Lisbon team. That doesn't surprise me in any way, shape or form. And I wouldn't let the statistics put you off this, because I think from actually watching him and using your eye test, and when you watch the guy play, from doing the research for this video and watching a fair amount of him now, he is actually quite impressive. I'd have to kind of hold my hands up and say I did turn my nose up about it a bit, thinking 18-year-old, 20 million quid. But the more I watch this kid play, the more I think it's one of these opportunities where could Arsenal be going and getting that player before he takes that next step? What we're going to describe as the Szoboszlai step, where he moves to RB Leipzig and suddenly doubles in value, and Arsenal are then priced out of him. Is he the type of player that Arsenal should look to move in for straight away and trying to get that deal done at the early stages, rather than seeing him move off to somewhere else and then even more value is put onto him and eventually Arsenal are priced out of a move? Is that something that you think that Arsenal need to do? Let's have a scroll up and see some of your comments from him earlier on in the video. Good evening, people. This won't be your only show of the day. Of course, we will be having a bit of a podcast later and a chat about yesterday's game as well. Balaja says, will this be another Gelson Fernandes? You can't obviously compare all players because it's just, with youngsters especially, it's very difficult. A lot of youngsters get very highly rated, and I don't imagine this is going to be one of those scenarios, to be honest. JD says, we need a cam, a defensive mid, a right back, a right centre-back, and a backup left-back. Our striking options should be Aubameyang, Gabi, Laka, Nketiah, and Balogun. Meanwhile, Edu, let's go buy an unknown, unproven 17-year-old for the Portuguese league. Well, he's 18, to correct you, JD. And striking is actually an area that I think we should be looking at, because Nketiah and Lacazette and Balogun could all be gone this summer. So the striking position is definitely somewhere that Arsenal are going to be looking to invest in the long term. So this does make a lot more sense than maybe you are giving him credit for. Nico F says, if we're losing Lacazette, this guy is a perfect replacement. Arteta and the coaches will have the time to mould him and take him to the next level. Let's have a look at Aya's comment. He says, don't understand what Jose is saying about him not fitting into our current system. If he's good enough, he'll cope. Plus, most good strikers started as wingers. I think what Jose was saying was talking about the fact that we have moved on from the 3-4-3 system that Sporting have been playing so far, and he's been playing on the right-hand side of the 3-4-3. It is a different system to what we play, but I think from looking at him, his physicality, his speed, his technique, his skill on the ball, he can adapt. He would be able to change, especially as a very young player, would be able to adapt to a new system. It's not like he's been playing this system for a very, very long time. So I wouldn't think of that as too much of an issue. Tashi says, I'm not opposed to signing Tomás, but isn't the price quoted around 20 million over the top? I would take him for about 10 to 12 million pounds. I think that in the market, if we are able to move on Lacazette for a decent fee, if we can maybe move Nketiah on for a decent fee, these are the type of signings that we need to make these days. You aren't going to pick up the best players in the world for between 10 and 12 million on two regular. You're not going to find too many Gabriel Martinellis on the cheap these days. And I think that if there's an opportunity to bring in a really young special player that's doing really good things, and this is someone that was promoted to the Sporting Lisbon first team just 6 months ago and is already in the Sporting Lisbon team regularly because they rate him that highly. And this is a Sporting side that is now pushing for the Portuguese title and is far and away the favourite for this season. You would not be risking a first season in many years by playing a young 18-year-old as much as they have done if they did not have the faith in this kid's ability. And I certainly think that he's one that could be coming straight into the Arsenal team and playing, not necessarily being a prospect, but certainly one that would go straight into the starting squad, necessarily the starting 11, but certainly the squad that's getting picked week in, week out, and a good understudy to Aubameyang as he reaches the end of his time at Arsenal. Toby says, the only worrying thing is the price for me, but if we get rid of Eddie and get some money for him, then it could be a good deal. Vinny says, I'd much rather get Edouard for this sort of money. He's proven at a higher level and can lead the line. Our strikers lack physicality. Interesting you say at a higher level, because I would genuinely put the Portuguese league at a higher standing as the Scottish Premier League, personally, for me. But you might use the argument to say that it translates better to the Premier League from moving from Scotland into the Premier League. It's a really good argument and one that's definitely up for debate for sure. Austin says, we have a promising young winger/striker in Gabriel Martinelli. But what I would say is that when you've got the amount of players moving on as we do with Lacazette and Nketiah, Balogun, and you've got Aubameyang going to be moving on in a couple of seasons, there's nothing wrong with investing in youth that's going to be here for a significant period of time. Samir says, Tom, is he going to struggle with the physicality of the Premier League? Seems like he is also dependent on the supply. Would he have to sort the midfield before we went for him? Of course, Samir, I think there are other areas of the pitch that Arsenal need to focus on. That is definitely a given. And it depends on the players that Arsenal move on with the summer. In regards to your first question about physicality, no, this kid is physical. He is a bit of a beast. He really is. And not only that, but he's got the intelligence on the ball when he receives it to turn and make space for himself and using the opposition players to his benefit. So I don't think that would be too much of an issue whatsoever. Hovik says, greetings from Armenia, Tom. Who would you want to be Arsenal's main striker in 3 years and be realistic? At the end of the day, Hovik, and I appreciate the comment, it's not going to be down to me who Arsenal pick or who I want them to get. They need to identify these targets. It could be this Tiago Tomás, it could be Edouard, it could be someone else. It could be Balogun, who we end up signing up to a new deal. You never know. It could be Nikolai Moller that eventually comes through with the kids. We just don't know at this stage who Arsenal need to go for. I don't want to be sitting here throwing out names. There's lots of players out there that Arsenal could look at, but there's no guarantees. And we need to sometimes maybe take a risk on some young players instead of going really big on a player that could arguably be even more of a financial risk for us and requiring them to succeed straight away. I mean, you look at the Pepe situation, and yes, there's a lot of kind of mitigating factors, but you can overspend on a player coming from abroad to the level of that after an amazing season, but actually maybe you need to look at longevity. Are they doing it consistently? And the right age profile of player. There are plenty of guys out there. You look at Willian Jose, who's doing really well for Real Sociedad this season, has now moved on to Wolves, and he can't really hit the back of the net. You need to be really careful about the players that you identify and to react to a question with that full thought. I'm not going to give you a name just yet, but what you can do is that you can save that question for tonight's podcast, and maybe after a little bit of thought, I'll come back to you with a better name on the end of it. Yes, Vance says, I want Daka. So impressive, physical and pacey. Interesting you say that, because I've actually leaned away from Daka. And if you are wanting a name from me now, I do like Koita. I really do like Koita. He is the, I think, actually, I'm not going to guess on his nationality, but I believe, just let me check very quickly, he is from Mali, which I'm pretty sure is also where Bissouma is from. Of course, we've been linked heavily with Bissouma in the past. Bissouma is also Malian. So we're playing together. It was good if we could get two Malian boys in with Keita and Yves Bissouma. Would be a really good kind of partnership to bring those two in. Chemistry-wise, might be working quite well. But yeah, I'd look at that. Caleb says, what about Ivan Toney as a possible guy? Maybe. Looking from the Championship is certainly something that Arsenal needed to do for quite a long time. Anyway, that is where I'm going to finish off the tactical breakdown for today. We are going to be back this evening with the podcast. I'm going to be joined by Pablo, Tom, O, and Jess, who are going to be on this evening at 8:30 UK time to break down yesterday's game, answer your questions, and look ahead to the match against Benfica. Fingers crossed we can get a good guest on for the preview. I'm doing my best to work on that. We'll see that very, very soon, I'm sure. If you have enjoyed the tactical breakdown, please make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Whenever we get linked to a player that is a little bit unknown, we like to break them down. In fact, whenever we get linked to a player in general, we like to break them down. So if you like that type of content, it's going to be covered all the time over here at TGT. There is also an article in the description where you can read even more of my thoughts on Tiago Tomás. And a massive thank you again to Jose for helping us with today's video and providing us the expert insight. I will see you again at 8:30 this evening for the podcast. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.